Okay, so we're going to start doing completing the square to deal with some quadratics. So the first thing you see on your paper are three factoring problems. So because they're all lead coefficients of 1, you just need to ask yourself what multiplies and adds to give you that number. So in the first case, you know that 3 times 3 gives you 9 and 3 plus 3 gives you 6. So you can factor this down to x plus 3 times x plus 3, which we know is the same, we discussed this the other day, as x plus 3 quantity squared. And so if you look at the second one, you know that 4 times 4 gives you 16, and 4 plus 4 gives you 8. So you can factor this one to x plus 4 quantity squared. And the last one, because it's negative, you have to use some negative numbers here. So 5 times 5 would definitely work, but it doesn't work for the addition. So you've got to change these to negatives. So this becomes x minus 5 quantity squared. And we call these perfect square trinomials because the factored form of them is a binomial that's being squared. So for these next couple, we're going to build off of what we just talked about and look at the fact that we're missing that C component. So here you're missing the C value, and that's what you're trying to find. So we know that this number, however, should be split up equally. And either think of it as 3 plus 3, or you could even do 6 divided by 2, which gives you 3. Now that number, in order to work here for the C component, we know that this number has to also be multiplied. So this is going to be 3 times 3. So our answer to go in this blank is going to be positive 9. So for the second one here, we're going to take this negative 24 and we're going to divide it by 2, split it up into equal parts. So our number would be negative 12. And so negative 12 being our number, we have to square that number to put it in the blank here. So our number that goes in the blank is going to be positive 144. And your number should always be positive because regardless of whether it's positive or negative, initially, when you square it, it's going to be a positive number. So last but not least, we know that 20, if we divide it by 2, is going to be 10. And 10 squared gives us positive 100. So for each one of these, we could then write them in their factored form, and their factored form is built off of that number that we found when we divided. So this would end up being x plus 10 quantity squared, and number 2 would end up being x minus 12 quantity squared. So just keep that in the back of your mind because this next part has us talking about what is standard form versus what is vertex form. Standard form is what we were working with, which is just your basic trinomial, ax squared plus bx plus c. Whereas your vertex form is the more factored version, which is a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. So we're going to be working on switching from the standard form that we've been dealing with to the vertex form because vertex form has some benefits to using that, but we have to use a process called completing the square, which we kind of just started a second ago. This is the long list of steps, and they're kind of ugly. So take a second to read through them. One thing I want to point out, which will become really important soon, is this piece. That when you do split it up, you have to make sure you put the positive number inside the parentheses and the negative number on the outside. So check to make sure that your equation is in your standard form. Put the x squared and the x terms in one parentheses. The c goes on the outside. Make sure the coefficient of the quadratic is 1. If it's not, you have to divide that out. And then from there, it kind of seems confusing. So we'll just kind of walk through these things together. Let's get down here. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to put some parentheses and group these two. Kind of the C part gets left at the end. So this is the first couple steps. Make sure the coefficient is 1, which many times it is, there are a couple times it isn't. So you're going to shove that down to the end, the number 8 down to the end, sorry. And then you're going to rewrite the equation with a positive on the inside and a negative on the outside. Okay, so that seems kind of goofy right now, but you have to understand that if you add and subtract something, if I add 7 and subtract 7, technically I'm not changing the value of anything, and that's why I'm allowed to do this, because plus 7 minus 7 is like adding 0. So you're not changing the quantity. Okay, so we're going to write it like, this is what I was talking about. You have your x squared plus 6x. Now, here's the weird part. You're going to write plus blank on the inside of the parentheses, and then you're going to write minus blank on the outside of the parentheses, and you have your plus 8. Now, this is where I said we're going to come up with a number to add, but to offset that number that we're adding in, we have to subtract it on the outside. So what we did before, we're going to take this 6, and I'm going to do this in a different color just so that you know that this is side work. So this 6 right here, and we're going to divide it by 2, which gives us 3, and then we're going to square it. Just exactly what we were doing on those first few problems. We found out our number was 9. And we're going to fill in the blank with that 9. Those blanks. Okay? And then we're going to take this part of it right here, and we're going to factor that into that perfect square that we had before. So we know that this would be x plus 3 quantity squared from the inside. Now our job is to add these two outside numbers together, and they live on the outside. So negative 9 plus 8 gives me negative 1. So my standard form of the problem is what was given to me, but then my vertex form is x plus 3 quantity squared minus 1. Okay, let's try that again. Create some space. So we're going to parentheses x squared term and the 8x term, and then you're going to leave yourself that plus blank on the inside and the minus blank on the outside. And then you have your plus 19 all the way hanging out at the end. Okay, then again, side work, take your negative 8, divide it by 2, gives me negative 4, and then you got to square that. So our blank number should be a positive 16. Just a little tip, this number is your cheat number for factoring, that negative 4. So when it comes to factoring, this is always going to be that cheat number. So you would have x minus 4 inside the parentheses that you're squaring, and then you can add your outside two numbers, and you get positive 3. So it's not a huge task to put it from standard form to vertex form, assuming that your a value is 1. Okay, a couple more. Y equals, I'll do one more with you and then let you do the other one on your own. X squared minus 4x plus blank minus blank plus 6. Off to the side, negative 4 divided by 2 gives me negative 2 that I'm going to square. So my blank number is a positive 4, and my cheat number is a negative 2. Okay, don't forget, the number before you square it, that's your cheat number for factoring. So then we can write it in its factored form, x minus 2, there's your cheat number. Don't forget your squared. And then a plus 2 when you add your outside. And that is your vertex form. Okay, hit pause and then do this next one on your own and come back and check it. Okay, so I worked it all out here for you, so check the work. Cheat number would be 1. Your blank number would also be 1.